Morning, Tim.
Good morning, everybody. John Spielke here for GAI Insights, bringing you the news, essential, important, or optional, putting thoughts in your head, time in your day. We have Paul, we have Tim, we have Ankash. We got some interesting things this morning, lots of new model releases. Ankash, take us to the first one, please.
Sure, thanks, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from Baidu. So they have delivered new LLMs, Ernie 4.5 and Ernie X1, and they are undercutting DeepSeek and OpenAI on cost.
Yeah, so here we have another Chinese giant, Baidu, coming in. They claim at 50% of the training cost of DeepSeek, which is 1% of the training cost of GPT 4.5. What do you think here, Tim?
I think I didn't see this article, but
okay. Go through it. It was added late. It's okay.
But I have been aware of this because I'm an investor in Baidu a couple of times actually, and this is, Baidu's an incredible powerhouse in a couple of ways that people aren't really aware of. I mean, they are a huge entity in China. They have been doing a lot in AI. And they are one of the few companies that are not right in the bullseye of the tariffs, at least. So as a company, they're pretty strong. And this new model is important for two reasons. So I haven't read this article. I would, without reading it, say it's probably important just because these new models, again, reinforce the new level of the playing field, because these models are consistently performing at the level of DeepSeek and the OpenAI non-reasoning models, which at incredible price, like half the price of DeepSeek, which shocked everybody because it was so cheap.
Yeah, so you're leaning toward
important
here. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think. Sorry, I'm on mute. I had optional, maybe support important. I mean, I think the cost of intelligence is clearly dropping. I don't know if our AI leaders are going to be comfortable using Chinese models, and I think they shouldn't care how much the models cost to develop because it's plummeting. So, but certainly, I mean, we're in the age of China right now, and the age of the specific development. So we got to certainly be monitoring. So I could support important.
Yeah, I was leaning more toward optional though, in terms of. It's got a very small token window. It is still on the Chinese servers. You can't get it. It's not available through any of the, the Western providers. I don't know.
I can support that. As I said, unfortunately, I'm not sure why I didn't see this article, but I didn't see it. I hope I didn't read the wrong article.
No, we had it was a late change. We had another thing in there. That's why, Tim.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Let's give it an optional. Ankash, next, please.
Okay, the next that we have for today comes from Mistral, and they have launched Mistral Small 3.1.
Here we got, check out that. Look at that latency, teeny, Mistral Small, doing amazing things at 24 billion parameters here. I was going to give this an optional. You got a pretty large context window here, up to 128,000 tokens, which is a 250-page novel. But in its performance in terms of across the benchmarks is really good. But again, everyday miracles. I'm tempted to give it an important just because I love the fact that you have to retrieve this thing from Le Platform.
Le chat. We love French.
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting. The Europeans, I think, not for now, but I think we ought to have a learning lab on, the role of these different open source communities, right? And how strong they are around the world. And the French are really, leading the Europeans in terms of, trying to create more of an open environment and available, real open source capabilities. So I was going to give this an optional, definitely, definitely important to folks who are worried about the mobile implementation, but optional is my thing. Where are you guys on this? Tim, Paul?
Yeah, optional for me, to quote our former colleague John Perry Barlow, as you say, I need a miracle every day. And here we have one. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Lyricist for the Grateful Dead. I was actually at an event where at 2:00 in the morning, after many martinis, John Perry Barlow was trying to license I Need a Miracle Every Day to Betsy Holden, who at the time was co-CEO of Kraft and for Miracle Whip. It's one of the more bizarre scenes of my entire life. Paul, what's up?
Yeah, optional. I mean, I think I think we know some of the folks at Mistral. They need some distribution. This is just R&D announcements, and they continue to do interesting things, and no one's picking them up. So they need distribution, and I think, as she's talked as before. I mean, it's just breathtaking that we continue to have commoditization of intelligence at almost free cost at the edge and anywhere I want. So. The nexus of choice is moving to distribution and confidence and features and integration.
Yeah. All right. Optional it is. Okay. Next.
Okay, the next one that we have comes from Roblox, and they have introduced a new GenAI system for generating 3D and 4D models.
Yeah. Fascinating. This ability to generate, they've trained a model on the actual 3D objects. In addition, their definition of 4D, which I often think of as time, is actually more precise than that. It's available. It's they're talking about not only time but interaction with the 4D part is interaction with other things in the game, the environment or characters or whatever. What do you think here, Paul?
I had for AI leaders, I had this as optional. I do think that they, Roblox is certainly a widely used platform, but 3 and 4D is still optional for. It's an uncommon use case.
Now for me, I was leaning toward important or maybe even essential. Let me make a case, which is there's a lot of folks in lots of things, including website design and so forth, where you're going to really want a 3D model or maybe a 4D model, and the ability. I think this is the first model trained directly on 3D objects. I got to double check that, but I think that's the case. And it does. You go straight from. I love their phrase, from words to worlds, and you've got 85 million users pounding on this every day in the Roblox platform. So you've got a phenomenal stream of interaction data. I don't know. I was definitely important, maybe even essential. Where are you, Tim?
Yeah, I was more leaning towards option on Paul's kind of ideas. It is, again, you get all these indirections through externalities. We don't want to get too wonky, but game companies making fundamental advancements in research because they have the data and they have the interest for their game. Mm-hmm. I do agree that it will become more important over time beyond the gaming industry, but this is still pretty specific. It is open source, but it's a developer's kit. It's not going to be thrust upon the world too quickly, I don't think. And it's not entirely clear how good their interactions are. So it's an interesting idea. The question is, have they put one of their physics engines in with it when they say interactions? In other words, how does it understand interactions and how does it do all that part? So there's a number of open questions. It's a product announcement, so I tend to be towards the optional on these things. It is an important trend. And they claim to have done a new version of tokenization, which could be really important because that's the key to everything with transformers. But,
yes,
I can't speak to how valid that claim is. There are lots of 3D model generators, and I don't know how everybody tokenizes by definition. So the question is just what do they tokenize and how do they tokenize it? And I'm not enough of an expert at that level to comment.
But I thought that the diffusion models didn't tokenize.
Diffusion models don't.
And most of the
in the same way, right? Mm-hmm.
Most of the 3D generation is diffusion, right?
I don't know that either. I'm not an expert on 3D generation.
Anyway, one of my morning routines is to think of someone who inspires me. I thought of Ben Franklin this morning, so I'm in a very democratic mood. We're going for optional. Next.
John, before we get to the next one, I want to Lucinda post about Mistral being available in Bedrock. We were talking about distribution.
Yes.
And one comment Lucinda, I want to have is that we, in the buyer's guide, we saw a lot of AI vendors, tout how they're in the Azure store and Mistral store, and I continue to see that as not as distribution. I mean, just because you're I think John, you like in the kitchen drawer, doesn't mean that customers are doing it. And certainly, I have not seen Microsoft and AWS selling
and I can actually tell you, at least anecdotally from my colleagues who work at both of these companies, the overwhelming traffic at AWS is Claude, and the overwhelming traffic at Microsoft is OpenAI.
Correct. I mean, they're pushing very specific models, saying they have the others just to give the offer of choice for those 2% of the companies that want it. So if any startups are relying on being in the AWS or Azure marketplace for success, I think they're fooling themselves.
All right.
So that's why I think Mistral's really missing a window. I think they got a good little widget over there, but they have no distribution.
There you go. Competing on a better product. What a horrible idea. Anyway. Next. Optional it is. Ankash, next.
Okay, the next one is a case study which talks about Visa's AI Edge.
Yeah, very interesting. We've got, back to what you were just saying, Tim, about OpenAI. Here we have sounds like a, private version of OpenAI running behind in the trust environment that Visa has. Obviously they have enormous flow. This thing, has had a huge impact financially. They're claiming in last year alone avoiding $50 billion of fraud, and this notion of RAG as a service. So, and one of the, they operate in over 200 countries. So there are a lot of technicalities about what transactions they can process in what way and so forth, and the difficulty of giving their staff, the right direction each time. They seem to have done a good job here. So I was at important as a good case study, maybe even essential, given that Visa is so well known, and obviously getting it wrong in this high risk, high regulated area is also difficult. It gives some details in terms of how they did it, what the financial impact is. So I don't know. I was on the fence between important and essential. What do you think, Tim?
I was honestly in the same place and almost leaning towards essential, because I think I'm going to send this to a number of senior leaders, just because the amount of effort that Visa has put into making this available, mostly to their developers as products, but also to the rest of the firm through those products, and the aggressiveness and early access that they went after. I think that's a big lesson for companies. They knew there would be shadow IT if they didn't make this available. They went through the effort to make it secure. And as you said, they're in a high stakes regulated game operating all over the world. So this is, if you want a use case that says you need to pay attention to this, this is a good one. And I liked the basic approach. I wish they had a little more detail on the use cases and some ROI or some results stuff. But, Visa is one of the best run companies in the world right now. I mean, they have been, to use the vernacular, kicking ass and taking names for a long time in this market.
Sure.
So you got to respect them.
All right, essential it is. Great new case study from VentureBeat. Ankash, next, our AI voice agent update.
Yes, so the next one comes from A16Z, and they have made some updates to their AI voice agent pack.
Yes, Olivia Moore, who seems to be their deep voice expert here. What'd you think, Tim?
I thought it was, okay. I think it's optional for the AI leader. I think that we've talked many times that voice is a crucial aspect of the development of this market. And so I think the basic point is correct. I think, it doesn't add that much information beyond that, unless you're interested in knowing in minute detail the many, many, many companies involved and how much funding they've gotten and yada, yada, yada. So I didn't find it all that valuable. It is a hugely important trend. And there's some nice notes, but they've been printed lots of other places, like the number of Y Combinator companies after voice. But that's pretty typical, as we've talked about. Once something becomes hot, the funding industry goes nuts in that area. And so you get a lot of startup companies going after it. Great. So there'll be some new innovation.
Let me make the case for essential. It's such an important area. This, for me, is the best description of what's available, what the market is, what the match is between the supply and the demand. I thought if you go back up, Ankash, to the very beginning, what's happening to the architecture of, how it all works in terms of just a model in the middle, not right there. All these different, inference stacks down the very simplified voice-to-voice model. I don't know. For me, it was definitely important, maybe essential for all the reasons you said, Tim. It's just that I looked at this. The one reason you didn't say or didn't agree with is that this is a good compendium of market demand, market supply, and some important areas to look. I thought it was an easy read for our AI leader to really get a handle on this vital trend.
Okay. I won't argue. It does have good information. I would probably say run it through an LLM and just get the summary, unless you really have a lot of interest in the topic, because there's a lot of extra information here about. I can't imagine. Yes, it does have lists of companies, but again, we don't know. I tend to think those lists are biased.
Oh, sure.
Because for their investment, so it's not a great place to start a product evaluation, for example.
Yeah. But
the architecture stuff and the points they make are right. I just think they could have been made in one page instead of 10 or whatever it is.
Yeah, they are transparent about which companies they're invested in. So
yeah, okay. It is a super important area, and a lot of people are going to be either experiencing this or wanting to use it. The fact that you can now have spam for free. It was almost free already anyway. It's just really frightening to me, but
yeah, I got voice spam. Oh my God. All right. Essential it is. Ankash, next.
Okay, the last one that we have for today is again a case study from AWS.
Yep.
And it talks about how GoDaddy has built a category generation system with Amazon Bedrock.
Yeah, for me, this was definitely optional. It goes through a lot of detail in terms of how they can do batch processing on inputs for unlabeled categorizations to come up with good categorizations that are very fit from a compute time perspective, very efficient. What categorizations do for GoDaddy's business, I didn't quite understand, but this particular data processing and inference processing thing was very clearly laid out, but I thought optional for our AI leader. What do you think, Tim?
I agree. I love Amazon case studies, and I love this one too. But I would not rate this as important or essential just because it's really focused on the details of development. If you're a developer, it's terrific because it has an enormous level of detail on a topic that's not covered very often, which is basically optimization of token processing, which is going to become more and more important. You've made that point many times, but it's just so technically oriented. I think it's not for the AI leader. It's for the developers at organizations.
All right, so we'll give them an optional. Ankash, if you give us a tote board here in a minute. Tim, any announcements or anything new happening at Manat or in your life?
Nothing that exciting. We have a regular thing at Manat of AI webinars. You can go to manat.com and find them. We also do have policy trackers on AI legislation, if that's of interest to you or people you know, but nothing special this week.
All right, and remember, you can always get our articles at gaiinsights.com/articles. And here we have the total. We've got one essential, mostly optionals, two essential, sorry. Visa's Edge, how RAG as a service works, an AI voice agent update, and everything else optional. Nothing important. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're in or you're out today. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Ankaj. Bye-bye now.